20 million barrels of oil move through a single choke point every single day. That's roughly 20% of everything the world burns just to keep the lights on. And right now, that flow has dropped to almost zero with ships literally burning in the Persian Gulf. One weapon is behind all of this chaos, and chances are you've never even heard of it. It's called the Noor missile. So let's break down exactly how this thing works, why it's so deadly, and honestly, why it's going to hit your wallet way harder than you'd ever expect. Alright, so here's the deal with the Noor. It's basically a 21-foot cruise missile that tips the scales at around 1,575 pounds. The warhead alone packs 365 pounds of semi-armor piercing explosive designed to punch straight through steel. Depending on the variant, this thing can reach targets anywhere from 20 to 170 miles out. And it cruises at Mach 0.9, which is just a hair under the speed of sound. We're talking roughly 680 miles per hour screaming straight at you. But here's the thing, those specs alone don't tell you why this missile is such a nightmare. To really get it, you gotta see how this thing actually operates. So let's walk through a Noor strike from launch to impact. First off, this missile can be fired from pretty much anywhere. Coastal trucks disguised as regular civilian vehicles, destroyers, fast attack boats, helicopters, even fighter jets. The moment someone pulls that trigger, a solid fuel booster ignites. Within seconds, the Noor rockets from 0 to Mach 0.9 almost instantly. Once it hits cruising speed, the booster drops off and a turbojet engine kicks in. And this is where things start getting real sneaky. See, the Noor doesn't fly high where radar can easily pick it up. Instead, it drops down to just 65 to 100 feet above the water, literally hugging the waves. At that altitude, it uses the Earth's curvature and sea clutter to basically disappear from ship radars. The autopilot keeps it locked onto the target's last known position using inertial guidance. Meanwhile, a radio altimeter makes sure it doesn't fly too high or crash into the waves. Now here's where the Noor becomes truly terrifying. In the final phase, the missile's active radar seeker switches on. It scans the area, locks onto the target ship, and adjusts its course for a direct hit. At the same time, it drops even lower, descending to just 15 to 25 feet above the water. At this altitude, at this speed, the defending ship has literally seconds to react. Iranian sources claim a 98% hit probability, and based on what we've seen, that's not far off. When the Noor connects, it's engineered for maximum carnage. The semi-armor piercing tip punches through the ship's hull, steel or aluminum, doesn't matter. Then a delayed fuse triggers the main explosive charge inside the ship. The result is internal devastation, fires, flooding, and crippled propulsion systems, combined with the kinetic energy of a 1,500-pound missile traveling at 680 miles per hour. Even ships that survive are basically knocked out of the fight. And look, we don't have to guess about any of this. We've got proof. July 14, 2006, the Israeli corvette INS Hanit was patrolling off the coast of Beirut during the Lebanon War. Hezbollah, armed with Iranian missiles, fired 2 Noors from the Lebanese shore. One struck the Hanit, and here's the kicker about the 4 sailors who died that night. Staff Sergeant Tal Amgar, Corporal Shai Atas, Sergeant Yaniv Hershkovitz, and First Sergeant Dov Steinshus. They were trapped in the rear section when the ship's automatic fire system sealed them in. The ship's propulsion was crippled, the flight deck caught fire, and it limped back to port. The second missile flew past the Hanit and sank a Cambodian merchant ship 37 miles away. But here's the part that blew everyone's mind. The Hanit had advanced anti-missile systems on board, some of the best in the world at the time. But Israeli commanders never switched them on because they didn't believe Hezbollah had this kind of tech. The missile flew right in completely unopposed. That attack changed everything and proved the Noor wasn't just some theoretical threat. Israel realized they weren't dealing with some poorly armed militant group anymore. Hezbollah, with Iranian backing, now had military capabilities that rivaled actual nation states. And this brings us to what's going down right now. Since late February 2026, Iran has effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz. At least 16 ships have been hit, and traffic through the strait has plummeted by 90%. The Noor missile and its upgraded variants like the Qadr and Gadir are making all of this possible. Oil prices have already blown past $100 a barrel, the highest we've seen in nearly 4 years. In California, gas prices have ripped past $5 per gallon, and they're still climbing. The IEA just announced they're releasing 400 million barrels from emergency reserves. That's the largest coordinated drawdown since the agency was created back in 1974. And here's what most folks don't realize. It's not just about oil. About 85% of Middle Eastern polyethylene exports flow through that strait. That means shortages in packaging, car parts, consumer goods, basically everything you buy. 1/3 of global fertilizer trade also passes through Hormuz, and planting season is right around the corner. If these shipments stay blocked, food prices are about to get real ugly. So why doesn't someone just take out these missiles? Well, this is where Iran's strategy gets seriously clever. They know they can't match the US Navy ship for ship, and honestly, they're not even trying to. Instead, they've poured resources into missiles, drones, fast boats, and sea mines. Weapons that are cheap to build, easy to hide, and absolutely devastating when used in swarms. A single Noor missile costs a fraction of what a ship's defensive systems run. Fire enough of them at once, and even the best defenses can get overwhelmed. The Strait of Hormuz is only about 20 miles wide at its narrowest point. That's basically a shooting gallery for anyone with coastal missile batteries, and Iran has thousands positioned along the shore. Even with US Navy escorts, experts say you simply can't stop every missile. One hit on a tanker, and insurance companies pull coverage from the entire region overnight. Ship crews refuse to sail, and global markets start spiraling. So what's the bottom line here? The Noor isn't the most advanced anti-ship missile out there, not by a long shot. It's not hypersonic, and it doesn't have cutting-edge stealth technology. But it doesn't need any of that because it's reliable, accurate, and dirt cheap to mass produce. In the tight waters of the Persian Gulf, where ships have nowhere to run, it's a weapon that can flip the balance of power literally overnight. The Noor proves something that a lot of people still don't want to accept. In modern warfare, you don't need the biggest guns or the fanciest tech. You just need the right weapon, in the right place, at the right time. And right now, Iran has positioned thousands of these missiles along its coastline, ready to fire. The question isn't whether they'll use them again, because they already are. The real question is how much more are you willing to pay at the pump before this thing ends? That's the reality we're all living in right now. And that's exactly why the Noor missile matters to every single one of us.